most recently, Ian actually got Bill Gates, who's coming to speak at Stanford in a few days, to do some open office hours. So that's generating a lot of traffic. So there's just a fun example of what you can do with a Facebook fan page as a brand. YouTube. Who here has watched a video on YouTube? Raise your hand. Everyone? Okay, I figured as much. But you know, if I'd asked that question even 3 years ago, probably not everyone's hand would have gone up. So this has become one of our main ways of consuming media. And I'm just going to move on.
Oh, sorry.
So number 2, search engine after Google. Interesting little side note here, I have a friend who works in a technology company in San Francisco. They're trying to figure out a way for people to search using images. Right now you can only search using words. So if you think about it and you're looking for a video about, let's say, Botswana, and you still have to type in the word Botswana, he's trying to figure out, can you use images to search for images? So I think that's going to be the next thing that we'll start to see. Well over 1 billion views per day on YouTube. And as marketing, from a marketing standpoint, you want to know not just who's viewing the videos, but who's passing them around. So the likeliest group to embed videos in their content are 20 to 35-year-olds. So a little bit slightly older demographic than you might think. It's not just the teenagers. These are the people who are really getting the word of mouth out there via YouTube. Twitter, okay, I'm a total Twitter fan. I love Twitter. It's been interesting to see it evolve. So let's talk a little bit about the stats. 75 million users and 50 million tweets a day. So a lot of those users are tweeting multiple times in a day, and then a lot of people actually they're finding have Twitter accounts and aren't using them at all, but maybe they're following people, so you're not posting content, but you're following other content. And what I've seen is the evolution of Twitter from, you know, oh, I'm eating tomato soup for lunch, which is, okay, maybe a few people in your life care about that, but probably not a broader audience, unless you're asking kosher, and in which case, you know, all 10 million of your followers do care that you're eating tomato soup. But, you know, for the rest of us, it's like really a news service. It's news headlines. So it could be that your specialty as a Twitterer is a certain area, geographic area, like you're tweeting about Silicon Valley, or you're tweeting about New York City. Or it could be that your expertise is more in a certain domain or industry, like you are Guy Kawasaki and you're tweeting about the latest tech trends. Or you work in finance and you're tweeting about what's going on in the banking industry right now. So that's what I'm seeing emerge, is that you kind of develop your expertise and then you tweet about that area or that domain, and less so about the personal stuff and more about linking to interesting content that you've come across. And so then other people who are following you and they go, oh yeah, what does Guy Kawasaki have to say about what's going on in Silicon Valley right now? So as a news service, and almost supplanting traditional news sources. So I know people who now say, I get my daily news on Twitter. I don't even read the New York Times anymore. I go to Twitter, I read the headlines there, what's coming across my tweets. And a fascinating example of that, so I was just in Haiti last month. I went down there to volunteer, and I met this guy, Luke Renner. He's like in his early 30s. He's an American. He's down there with his family. And when the earthquake happened, he'd been down there for a couple years already running a nonprofit. So he decided to go on Twitter and tweet about it and say, hey, American on the ground, you know, if you want to know anything about the earthquake in Haiti, call this number. And he posted his personal phone number. Put this up on Twitter. Well, about 5 minutes goes by and he's wondering, okay, what have I done? We'll see if this gets any kind of response, or people are going to call me. And he was really just trying to help. His first phone call was from Ann Curry. Yeah. Ann Curry called him and said, what's going on right now in Haiti? Ended up spending a lot of time on the phone with him, calling him back several times to get updates, and invited him to speak at the Twitter conference that's happening in New York this week called 140. So, fascinating story of how traditional media is actually harnessing citizen journalists, so-called citizen journalists, people on the ground, because no matter how extensive a reach you have, you can't possibly have someone in the middle of every situation and in the world at all times. And yet there's someone is there pretty much all the time now, tweeting, blogging, posting photos on Flickr. So really interesting story of social media. Okay, LinkedIn, sorry. No, my fault. LinkedIn is next. LinkedIn, professional networking, probably most of you guys are familiar with it. It's kind of your way of keeping your professional networks going, post your resume. I'm not going to go into that extensively. I find it rather boring, although important, because the next important statistic is 80% of companies say this is their primary mode of finding employees. Isn't that unbelievable? That just like boggles my mind. So you need to be on LinkedIn, but we're not gonna, it's not that sexy.
Actually, we ought to talk the relationship of LinkedIn and Twitter.
Okay.
What you can do is that you can, with the right hashtags on Twitter, and you have stuff that you want people to see on LinkedIn.
Right.
It posts it immediately back to your status on LinkedIn.
That's a good point. That's an excellent point. You want to kind of keep a more live presence on LinkedIn and be attracting more live following.
Especially if you're writing a blog that you want to tie to your career.
Great point. Excellent point. Thank you for raising that. All right, onward to Foursquare. So Foursquare, Gowalas, anybody on any of these? Raise your hand. Hands up. Not so much, right? So this is the newest trend in social media. It's location-based. So Foursquare, Gowala, you're like going to your cell phone and checking in at places. So I just checked in here to plug and play. We'll keep going. It tends to be a younger demographic. This is like kids, teens, young 20s who want to see where are my friends hanging out, what's the latest hot spot. But also, it's really good for events, things like this event. So you're checking into an event, you can see who else is there. Do one more. And it's had 400% growth since October 2009. So it's getting really trendy and popular.
It's also like what Google Maps is doing with Buzz.
Right, and so Google has jumped on the bandwagon with Buzz. Twitter just added a location-based, you want to tweet your location. So everyone's kind of picking up on this as, oh, this is where we got to go. One of the interesting things about Foursquare, so we can go to the next one, I just put my check-in history up here so you can see what it looks like, is if you've checked in the most to a place, then you become the mayor. And it's yeah, I think it's cute too. So and it's fun because it's like being a VIP without having to be a VIP and have lots of money, right? It's like they recognize you, and then if you're the mayor of that Starbucks, then you're going to get like a free latte every time you go in. So there's actually rewards, real life rewards to it. So they're doing a lot of that.
I don't know if you know Brady Forrest, he does the Ignite events. He tweeted something. He got 10% off his bill, like a big bill at a restaurant.
Really? Because he was the mayor, right? So so companies are starting to recognize this and figure out in Google and Twitter and how can they sort of hop on the bandwagon. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm interested to see how it develops. Are there, okay, so this is my kind of takeaway from what is social media. The way I look at social media is that it's a trust fund. And by that I do not mean Paris Hilton. So this is not the trust fund you were born with and we go and we say, oh, trust fund baby, because you don't have a choice about whether your parents granted you billions of dollars in their will. It's the old-fashioned handshake. It's a virtual handshake. So what you're doing when you create a social media presence as a brand or as an individual is you're saying, you're building up people's trust in you. You're building up their trust in you as a curator of information, and they may trust you on Yelp for your restaurant recommendations, on Twitter for which headlines you repost in your particular industry, on Facebook for the recommendations that you give of connecting friends to friends, or letting people know what the most fun thing is that's going on that weekend, whatever it is. It's building up trust in you and spreading that to other people, and then people are looking, as we saw in the Socialnomics video, other people are trusting you more than they're trusting advertisers, more than, in many cases, they're even trusting a news service. So that's how I look at social media, trust fund.
Just before you continue,
Yeah.
do you consider blogs part of social media or something
Yes.
different? This is a very debated point.
I do consider blogs part of social media. I think that they are, there's different ways in which people are using them, but I think that if people are going on there and they're sharing the blogs with other people and they're commenting on the blogs, then it's social. It's social networking. It's connecting people to people.
Okay, so you consider social media blog if they're connected to a social media such as Facebook, Twitter?
Probably, yeah. Because there are also blogs that are quite static and it's
Right.
just someone publishing information, right?